Pop art and the Feminist Art Movement. The Feminist Art Movement was started in the 1960s after the Civil Rights Movement was successful. The female artists were creating art to depict a woman's perspective rather than the typically shown male-dominant perspective. Reading into the Feminist Art Movement, I learned that a majority of the artwork not only revolved around feminist issues, but also revolved around the female sexuality, reproduction, and their take on social issues. Oddly enough, this movement was widely criticized for creating a barrier between female and male artists. On the contrary, it actually opened doors for more female artists to get recognized and their art to be admired more than it would have if the movement didn't happen. This evolution highlighted a variety of different types of artworks, but what mostly caught my attention was the pop art through the feminist revolution. Pop art was an art movement that occurred before the feminist art movement in the late 1950s, created by men. Pop art is defined as art that incorporates modern pop culture and mass media. The purpose of this genre of art is to, quote, distort the image, modify it enough so there is no longer naturalistic, yet not enough to make it unrecognizable, unquote. Pop art might have been male-dominant, but it paved the way for many female artists that used it to portray their message during and after the feminist art movement. Barbara Kruger created an interesting piece of pop art in 1981 titled You Are Not Yourself that I observed, and Kiki Kogelnik created a piece titled Tattoo Lady 2 that I also found to enjoy. In Barbara Kruger's piece, she shows a woman that's visibly upset and a reflection of a broken mirror with the letterings, You Are Not Yourself. This piece of artwork was being displayed at the Hirshhorn Museum in Washington, D.C., but that is its last known appearance in a gallery. The shattered glass looked to be as if it were caused by a bullet hitting the mirror, which could represent the effects of how society has made women feel about who they are supposed to be. Kruger used photography to capture the image and then added the lettering by simply cutting and pasting them on top of the photograph. This type of style can relate to what was being used in advertisements in the era of the pop art movement. The theme of this art piece is interpreted to be about the standards that women are given. Women were and are made to believe that they have to constantly change themselves to make others happy, but in reality it is self-destructive. The standards that society has on women are unrealistic and unhealthy, an observation pointed out by whywoman.wordpress.com was the fact the word not is smaller than the rest of the word, showing the manipulation society has on women, making them feel like that's who they actually are. In her piece, she appeals to your emotions and uses that to make the message come across in a more meaningful way, and that is why I found to relate to this piece of art even more. Another piece that Barbara Kruger did that is more recent and relates to the breaking down of women is titled Tears, and it shows a doll actually physically broken. It is currently being displayed at the Mariano Mercer Gallery and was done with digital print on vinyl. There is a stamp of a happy face over the broken doll to show how we're expected to cover up who we are and how we are feeling. To people, showing your breaking shows weakness, so they think they are required to put on this happy face. Even though this piece of Kruger's art was created in the past few years, I thought it was worth mentioning because of how Kruger's message about females in society stayed constant. 30 years later, and she still felt the need to portray this message, which really shows us how much has stayed the same in society. Kiki Kogelnik's piece, Tattoo Lady 2, was created in 1965, and the mediums used were ink, airbrush, and paper. This piece of art depicts the shape of a female body with a vertical rectangle going through the woman's navel and her crotch area. The use of this vertical line is used to bring attention to this part of the body because the color makes this section stand out. There are multiple scribbles placed horizontally on her legs and on her hips. Above her pelvis are two horizontal skinny oval shapes that connect to one another. The female body is outlined in the thick black line, which could be a barrier that the woman created to attempt to avoid what she's being told to do. Tattoos are shown on the ribs of the woman and on the forearm. What caught my attention most was a gun silhouette pointing at the abstract tattoo on her ribs. During the time, tattoos were looked down on, especially when they were on women. This gun can relate to the way society had control over women, shaming her for expressing herself and having that mark on her body. The gun in Kogelnick's piece reminds me of the mirror that was shattered with a bullet from Barbara Kruger's piece, You Are Not Yourself. In both pieces of art, although very different, show the consequences of the standards on women. In Kruger's piece, it shows the effect that can be caused from the torment that the standards have, with the tears she shed and the challenge to actually be herself and show who she really is as a person. That mirror could be her confidence that someone shattered, leaving her to feel broken. Kogelnick's piece doesn't show the effects of what the standards for women are, but instead shows society putting the female under scrutiny for the choices she decided to make with her body by depicting an actual gun. The woman in this art piece shows body language of being frightened and defenseless due to the position of her hands. She is unaware what she is supposed to do in the situation, so she lets it happen and doesn't fight back. The pieces of art they both have created still relates to our modern-day society's issues. Although we have shown a tremendous amount of progression in the way women are treated, there is still stuff that should be done to make life more fair for everyone. In our modern age, tattoos on women are more widely accepted and is considered a norm. The standards that are held on women are still very high and unrealistic, especially with the use of social media and the internet. Women still get shamed for their actions and what they choose to do with their body, so there isn't much change in that aspect. We have more women now that fight for equality than there was during the feminist art revolution, and the artists that I mentioned both had a huge impact on the way we think today. Seeing their pieces, it could work as a mind-opener for people who are blind to society's treatment of women. This movement helped change how the world saw women and help enable women to express themselves using art.